Hi everyone, it's me, Lindsay, again with EquipMeOT, here today to talk about all things Reacher. So as an occupational therapist, the Reacher is kind of our unofficial mascot. We use these things all the time in therapy, and so I thought it would be appropriate for me to go over some of my thoughts about them, comparing the three major types to give you all the information you need to be able to select the right Reacher for your purposes, because they all have slightly different value. So I hope that helps. I'm also going to give you some great hacks to make your Reacher extra helpful. Those are going to be towards the end of the video, so stick around for that. So let's get started. I want to start right away with the old standby. This is a Salmons Preston hospital grade Reacher. This is kind of the first line of defense when it comes to Reachers. It's often what's included in your hip kits. So if you have one from surgery, this is what it probably looks like. It's usually what we as therapists have available in our stock room. So you might have one of these from that. These are really useful for several different purposes. The first thing about it is extremely lightweight. These things weigh very little, which is part of the reason we like them. They are most useful for dressing activities or retrieving small or light or thinner items. The grip on it is a very tight pinpoint grip, so you're going to see it gives you a very tight grasp. It's got a single trigger handle. Now, I will note here, the trigger is 2 fingers to function versus the whole hand, because it is smaller, which is my first knock against it. If you have dexterity issues or would function better with strength if you were able to use your whole hand, this Reacher isn't going to be able to do that for you. However, for those who can use the 2 fingers, it is very effective from that standpoint. Another little problem I have with it is it's got this exposed rope, which is what pulls the Reacher into position. Because this is exposed, it does tend to stretch out over time just from being hit and used in that way. So these really have a fairly short life expectancy if you're using them a ton. So that's not a huge deal given the general price on these is around $10. So they're very low cost, which makes them great for a short-term Reacher that you may need during a recovery process. It also has 2 additional features. It has a magnet on the tip that is extremely weak, and I will talk a little bit about this added feature of the magnet I put on it a little later. It also comes with this push peg, and a note about the push peg, this is for removing your socks. So you're supposed to turn your Reacher around, grab your sock, and push it off, but in this design, I think because of the lower cost, it has an exposed Phillips head screw, and this is a little rough. If your skin is particularly thin or you are at risk for skin tears, do not put this directly on your skin because you do run the risk of producing irritation or a small skin tear, and we never want that. So there's a few features that I really like about this Reacher and a few that I don't like quite as much. The other option that you'll see a lot from the therapy world and the hospital world is something called a suction cup Reacher. Got a picture of it over here that I'm going to kind of show you to talk about it. The suction cup Reacher is really, really effective for retrieving things off of shelves. We typically use these types of Reachers in the kitchen setting because the way that they work, they grab on really effectively to cans, cups, round cylindrical shaped items, which are awkward to grab with other types of Reachers. So they're really useful for that. They have a decent amount of strength and they come in a variety of sizes. So you can get the shorter ones, which are around 18 inches, all the way up to 32 inches in length. You can also get a foldable model, which I have to say, I don't like at all. The foldable model tends to be unstable, and if you're retrieving something of any weight off a higher shelf, the risk of it folding on you is too high. I think it's unsafe and I don't like it a lot. A lot of my clients find it to be unstable as well. So I don't recommend that one. But the other 2 styles, the different lengths, work okay. Always note that if you're trying to retrieve heavier items, shorter Reachers are actually going to be better. If you add a lot of length, that lever arm is getting really long and it becomes a little bit harder for your shoulder to manage it. So if you've got shoulder weakness, the longer Reacher is not your friend. You want to go shorter to keep the weight closer to your body. So there's a next version of a Reacher that has come around and is really quite popular. You've probably seen something like this if you've looked for Reachers on Amazon. This one's by Drive Medical, purchased at a local big box store. It's about $18. This is 28 inches long, so similar to the first one. And as you can see, has this kind of rounded design. So it allows it to be useful for the same uses as I described with the suction cup Reacher. It also has a pincher grasp, so the tip comes together nice and tight, so it can be used a lot. Like the first Reacher I showed for things like dressing, retrieving small items from the floor. It's a little more dexterous than that suction cup reacher. It also has a full hand grip handle, which again is going to be better for those who have low dexterity or reduced strength. So that whole hand grip is really, really nice. They've also concealed the pull mechanism, the rope that's in here, and it's actually made out of more of a higher grade steel rope, so that's good. And then they have this really neat feature of the pivoting head. So I can make this a horizontal reacher like the suction cup, or I can make it a vertical reacher, which is going to be better for dressing. So this is a more useful reacher as far as its variety of function, but it's a little bit more expensive. So it's really up to you. I often have folks that buy multiple reachers to keep them in multiple spaces around their house. This one's going to be the best one to keep with you in all scenarios because it works really well in that variety of settings. All right. So you've made it this far. Let's talk about hacks. Let's talk about making your reacher a little bit more useful for you. So one of my first recommendations for that is to beef up the magnet. Now on this particular design reacher, we have this flat surface at the tip and there's already a small magnet behind here. It's a very weak magnet. It's about strong enough to pick up a paper clip, which is not super helpful. So what I've gone and done is purchase these very low cost. They're called rare earth magnets. You can get a box of 6 for like $8, so they're very low cost. And with a very strong double-sided tape or adhesive, you adhere it to the tip of the reacher far enough down that it's not going to affect your ability to use it as a standard reacher for gripping. And then I take the awkward or heavier items in my house that sometimes find themselves on the floor, like the remote control. And what I do is, with these low cost, 22 cents a piece, so very little investment, these are called fender washers and they have a smaller hole so they work really well. I just tape them to the back of these items that find themselves on the floor regularly. And now when I go to retrieve something from the floor that's awkward to grab with the reacher, I can simply grab it with the magnet and then slide it off and I've got it. So it's just a nice option to add a little bit more functionality, especially for folks who struggle with a reduced grip. So that's a nice way to make the reacher more practical. Another way to make your reacher more practical, and this qualifies on all reachers, is with Velcro. So if you're somebody who requires the use of a walker in addition to your reacher, which is a lot of people, I often take and put a slice of Velcro on my reacher, and I recommend using the soft side of the Velcro on the reacher since it's often used for dressing, so it doesn't stick to your clothing. And then you take the opposite Velcro and hit it on the side of your walker here. Now, I can just stick my reacher to my walker and it's with me wherever I go, making both the walker and the reacher more useful items and more likely to be used appropriately. So there you have it, a couple of nifty tricks and tools that you can use and a lot of information about reachers to hopefully help you make your decisions on what you need for your personal issues or struggles. So if you could give me a thumbs up if you got some value out of this, and obviously leave any questions or comments down below. And if you need more information on how to stay safe and independent in your own home, consider subscribing to EquipMeOT. Thank you.